welcome. This is Tigray Television live from Tigrai, and I'll be with you for today's news. You may watch the news live on your television screens as well as on our social media platforms, YouTube and Facebook. And now the details. In a press briefing on Monday, member of Tigray Central Command Getachew Reda said that Tigrayan forces have neutralized an offensive from the Ethiopian forces that was launched to take control of the capital of Tigray, Mekelle. Getachew also stated that Tigrayan forces are not interested in capturing territories, but they will continue to engage in the fight until there is no threat posed on the safety and security of the people of Tigray.
So they probably thought our defense lines were thinner in the south, and that would put them in a better position to march all the way on Mekelle easily, probably, but ultimately the right answer could only be gleaned from them, and they are the ones who know why they did what they did. But they launched an offensive. We defended our position for 2 consecutive days, and the afternoon of the third day we were able to effectively resist their offensive, and we set out to launch a counter-offensive. The rest, as I say, history. And most of northern Wollo now, as we speak, is a significant portion of northern Wollo is under our hands. We're not particularly interested in controlling this area or that area, but as long as the forces that were unleashed against us are ready to threaten the safety and security of our people, we'll continue to take appropriate measures to neutralize that threat. Whether neutralizing that threat would take us to some part of Amhara or Afar is an entirely different matter. And what's our objective? It's about ensuring the safety and security of the people of Tigray and making sure that every territory of Tigray is back in the hands of Tigray. Whether that happens peacefully or through military means is an entirely different. The international community needed to be reassured that we're not just a bunch of trigger-happy people who would shoot at any incident that involves shooting. Because we knew the people of Tigray deserve peace, and we knew every day that we spend in peace will be in the best interest of the people of Tigray. We need food aid, not because the people of Tigray were not able to feed themselves, but simply because our enemies imposed a situation that has made it almost impossible for the people of Tigray to survive without food aid. Okay, so at least that would give us enough reason to tolerate any simple provocations from here and there. And
Getachew Reda highlighted that Eastern Command of the Ethiopian National Defense Forces had joined the Eritrean army to launch another round of a genocidal campaign against the people of Tigray. Getachew said ANDF's alliance with the Eritrean army is a clear indication that Abiy Ahmed and his government are more interested in attacking Tigray rather than defending the people of Amhara and its territory.
The Eastern Command, uncharacteristically, an Eastern Command joining the Eritrean forces to attack Tigray again, that, for one thing, obviously shows that Abiy is not interested in defending Amhara or Afar. So it's left to our decision then. Then he wants to make sure that we don't have access to Sudan. We don't have access to the outside world, although he keeps blaming Ethiopia's historical enemies for supporting us. I don't know who those historical enemies are. The usual suspects, of course, are Egypt and Sudan, I guess. I would say Abiy has done more than anyone else to prostrate himself before these authorities to do their bidding. I honestly wouldn't mind getting support from anyone as long as it helps secure my people. What's unfortunate is we're not in a position to get the support because we are under a 24/7, 360-degree blockade, courtesy of Abiy Ahmed and his partners in crime, the Eritrea. But it's very unfortunate that Abiy prefers the Amhara region to be the theater of war. In fact, that raises a question why rather than sending the Eastern Command, which should have been in the eastern part of Tigray, to cross the border to Eritrea. So they could coordinate their efforts with the Eritrean regime and probably launch the second or third round of their genocidal campaign against Tigray. How that will turn out in practice remains to be seen, but the intention obviously is clear. Abiy doesn't have the slightest of intentions to defend the people of Amhara or Amhara territory. So whether we like it or not, as much as he wants the Amhara people to contribute their sons and daughters in defense of a cause that does not in any way reflect their choices, it does not in any way promote their interests, but something that promotes the interest of Abiy and a few oligarchs who want to profiteer from the plight of the people of Amhara, and of course, obviously, the plight and the fate of the people of Tigray and the rest of the Ethiopian population as well.
Asked about allegations by WFP's chief David Basley that the government of Tigray has stolen fuel tankers belonging to the World Food Programme, Getachew said the government of Tigray has only demanded the fuel it had lent to WFP for humanitarian operations. Recalling the chief's silence when Afar militia had attacked WFP's trucks, Getachew said it is inappropriate for an executive director of such a humanitarian organization to take sides in such a political agenda.
The timing and the intensity of or the passion with which Executive Director David Beasley attacked us raises so many questions. Executive Director Beasley had never uttered a word, not even a single word, when 4 months ago, after the cessation of hostilities agreement, Afar militia forces, probably at the behest of Abiy Ahmed, attacked WFP trucks destined for Tigray and ransacked WFP cargo in a manner that would shock the conscience of any sane people, let alone the executive director of WFP itself. He didn't say a word. He didn't say anything. If stealing was something we had proclivities for, we would have stolen WFP resources in Kombolcha when we assigned a division to protect WFP warehouses. There was, despite a clear and realistic possibility of starving people in that part of Amhara, to ransack WFP warehouses. Even fighters whose parents were not able to feed themselves in Tigray because Abiy Ahmed imposed a siege, took upon themselves to protect warehouses that belonged to WFP and CRS. An outrageous accusation was leveled against us when Abiy was attacking our positions, was launching an offensive and defending our positions. Simply speaks volumes about where these people's loyalties are. So it took the attention away, not from the invasion that was being visited upon us, not away from the offensive that was launched against our forces. It put the attention squarely on something that should not have merited any media attention in the first place, because it could have been resolved with close discussion with WFP officials here and Tigray Trade Industry Bureau officials here. But they chose to blame the victim for spurious reasons. And it doesn't look good when the executive director of a very celebrated humanitarian organization to try and take a side on a very sensitive political issue that has far-reaching ramifications.
The first airstrike since the declaration of humanitarian truce was conducted on Friday, August 26, killing 7 civilians, including children, and injuring scores more. Our reporter Sablo Lama visited the area of the attack and spoke with children survivors of the airstrike that have been left traumatized.
Airstrikes on civilians and their properties have been the main characteristics of the war on Tigray, with the Ethiopian government constantly bombarding residential areas, IDP camps, schools, hospitals, and recently, children's playground. On Friday, August 26, the first airstrike since the declaration of a humanitarian truce in late March would target children's recreational area in a residential area, killing 7 civilians, including 2 children, and injuring scores more.
When the jet came, my brother said, "Let's go and take cover." Then we tried to hide around the corner. While doing so, it threw its bomb.
Aryam Haftom here is a 6-year-old survivor of the deadly airstrike that killed her 10-year-old brother, Barakat Haftom. Aryam is too little to understand the death of her brother, as this whole experience has left her traumatized.
Me and my brother were playing in the playground when the jet came. I was very scared when this happened. We tried to run and take cover. Then it dropped its bomb. After that, I was hit on my hand, leg, and head. I tried to move, and my uncle came and took me to the hospital. My leg hurt a lot. Now I get scared when things make a loud noise.
Burhanu Husha, Barakat's and Aryam's uncle, is one of the first respondents of the airstrike. He describes the situation as follows.
I had met the children at around 5 local time and asked them where they were going. They said they were going to the playground. Then I went to work and returned home shortly. My house is around the area of the airstrike. After that attack, I immediately thought of the children and ran to help them. I found the girl, picked her up, and handed her over to other people. I tried to find Barakat Haftom. I found him dead. It is a miracle that his sister survived. Imagine how it must feel when a 6-year-old child asks you whether her brother is alive or not.
Barakat Haftom ይባል ግዳይ ሓደጋ ኮይኑ ነዮ ቱ ቆልዓዚ እዩ ካፍቱ ግዳይ ካፍቱ ሓደጋ ተሪፋኒ ኣብ መስኡል ነበረት ኣብ ቅድሚ እዩ ካብኣ ተፈልይዋ ይፈልጥ ቆልዓ ድንገት ላርአት በዓይና ማለት እዩ ተፈልይዋ ዘሎ ቆልዓ
Ta'ammar Girma, Aman Saeed, and Sidona Fasaha are also survivors of the attack who have been scarred for life by the harrowing experience. They recall that day as follows.
I was inside the playground, and then the guard told us to leave because it was lunch time. Me and some of my friends left and others stayed. After I walked a little and reached the transformer around the area, the jet hit. I ran and took shelter inside the building. Barakat and Aryam were inside the playground, and Sami, Dawit, and Thomas Tafari were walking by. It feels like a dream. We were living normally, and it was shocking after the jet came. All of this happened after we went home to eat our lunch because we've been playing all day long. Then a friend of mine called Barakat died there. He was 10 years old. His 7-year-old younger sister was also injured. I felt like it was a dream. We are so scared to walk by that area, let alone play there. I usually have nightmares about it. We don't usually get out of our homes. We lost our friends and people we know like Barakat and a neighbor called Sami who was passing by. Now we can't play as usual. We are so stressed and constantly having nightmares.
Separated from parents, away from school, and traumatized by such experiences, children in Tigray have been the most affected by the ongoing war.
Operation Rescue Ethiopia is an organization that supports orphaned and needy children. The Tigray branch of the organization has now announced that it has been forced to close its doors for the children in Tigray for fear of airstrikes following a recent attack that targeted a children's playground in the city. Mintakidana has more.
بزا ጊዜ እዚኣ همዚ ጎይርና ክንክወኩሙ ኣኪብና ናይ ምግብና ፕሮግራም ክንካይድ ለይንኽእለሉ ደረጃ በጽሕና ኣለና.
We reached a point where we can't offer you the food services you used to get so far.
Founded by Christina and Marciano Teixeira in 2000, Operation Rescue Ethiopia is a non-profitable charity organization established to help orphaned and poor children. What started with helping a handful of children at home, Operation Rescue has been able to help as many as 1,000 children across Tigray. However, now, for fear of airstrikes in light of the recent airstrike that has targeted a children's playground in the capital, The branch in Tigray has announced that it is no longer able to support the children. General Manager of Operation Rescue Mekelle branch, Getachew Tesfaye, says, in addition to the problems related to the siege, airstrikes have forced the organization to close its doors to the children in need.
We had a daily meal or a daily feeding program, but because of a couple of days, the airstrike bombardment had happened in our city, and it was also bombarded, the civilians and the children, like our children. So it was really heart-touching. It was really heartbreaking for us. So we are not secured to have at our center all these children. 400-500 children at the center. We never know what would happen.
Getachew says that the organization was previously able to help more than 1,000 children achieve their dreams, but this has become impossible due to the Ethiopian government's airstrikes on Tigray.
In the last 2 decades, we have been already being helped over 1,000 children here in Tigray. So the former children who joined Operation Rescue, by now, most of them, they are graduated from different universities, colleges.
Aben Yosef, a 17-year-old who was being supported by the organization along with his sister since a very young age, says the organization was a place he could call home.
Operation Rescue has been helping me and my sister since we were in kindergarten. They provided us all the support we needed. They gave us food and educational support like tutorial and library service. We left the campus happy every day.
The general manager calls upon the world to take action so that Tigrayan children can have a bright future once again.
The international community, as soon as possible, intervene and resolve this problem. This problem will be really a long-lasting, and it affects Tigray, it affects Ethiopia, it affects the country, it affects the globe in general.
In a statement on Monday, Alliance of Civil Society Organizations and Tigray ACSOT condemned the aerial attack by the Ethiopian government in a children's playground in Mekelle that took the lives of at least 7 civilians, including children. The alliance has also condemned the resumption of the war on Tigray and called for an immediate end to the conflict to avoid further bloodshed. The civil societies called on all parties to respect international human rights law and humanitarian law and protect civilians under all circumstances. The statement finally called on the international community to pay enough attention to the war on Tigray and play its role in finding a peaceful resolution to the war. According to assessments conducted by the Bureau of Health, the war, coupled with the all-encompassing siege on the region, has caused 89% of the population to become food insecure. Malnutrition rate for children under the age of 5 has also reached 29%, surpassing the 15% standard for global acute malnutrition. Deputy head of the Bureau, Dr. Ria Isaias, says that the resumption of war will likely exacerbate the already devastated humanitarian situation in Tigray. Abraham Gebretinsaye has more.
The living condition of millions of Tigrayans has been devastated as a result of the war and the siege that has blocked delivery of essential items, including food aid. Deputy head of the Bureau of Health, Dr. Ria Isaias, says that 89% of the people in Tigray remain food insecure, out of which 47% are severely food insecure.
And whenever we see the situation here in Tigray, WFP made this emergency food security assessment. And then according to this WFP Emergency Food Security Assessment, 89% of the society is categorized and labeled as food insecure. And like out of those 89%, those 47% are labeled as severely food insecure. So when we see the situation, the food insecurity situation, sadly, like 98% of the central zone is food insecure. 95% of this northwest zone is food insecure. And 90% of southeast is food insecure.
Considering the food insecurity, the deputy head says that malnutrition rate among children under the age of 5 has exceeded the 15% standard for global acute malnutrition and has reached 29%.
The nutritional status here in Tigray of this under 5 children is significantly high, which is expressed in number. Around 68,000 children under 5 are now categorized or are labeled as severely acute affected by severely acute malnutrition. Not only this amount, which is affected by severe acute malnutrition, almost around 257 children under 5 are also affected by moderate acute malnutrition. And this, whenever we evaluate this, so there is an evaluating standard which is called global acute malnutrition, which sum up this severely acute malnourished and moderate acute malnourished children. So together, it accounts for around 29.
In light of the more than a year-long blockade on the region, Dr. Reyes says the Bureau is finding it very difficult to provide nutritious supplies to the under 5 children who have been identified as suffering from severe acute malnutrition and moderate acute malnutrition. The deputy head also says that the RTF that is distributed to severely acute malnourished children remains far from being enough.
Why we are becoming worried about this situation is because we were unable to address the intervention needed to those amount of children under 5, because since January 2021 only around 2,000 metric ton is arrived here in Tigray to address the demand for intervention. And currently we were out of stock. Actually, these days UNICEF brings around 9,000 carton RTF, which is supplied to trade for the severe acute malnourished. But when you compare and when you try to check this event, it is almost nil when we compare with the demand and the already in hand enrolled children to be treated.
Dr. Rie highlighted that the resumption of the war is likely to exacerbate the already dire nutritional crisis in Tigray, as this would hamper the delivery of the limited items the Bureau has been receiving. He says the blockade of supplies would mean a death sentence to the more than 68,000 severely acute malnourished children.
This resumption of war is literally mean those who are enrolled on treatment, particularly those children under 5, is like letting them to be out of this treatment, and then by definition this is letting them to die. So imagine, I'm talking about 68,000 of children under 5. I'm talking about 257 children of under 5 who are malnourished moderately and who are malnourished severely.
The deputy head calls on the international community to intervene immediately and save the lives of the thousands of children before it is too late.
In this situation, and in this situation where I mentioned the number of beneficiaries who demand the therapeutic intervention, and eliciting war is literally unacceptable, and the international community should intervene and should act.
The discontinuation of basic services in Tigray, coupled with the ongoing siege, has led to the devastation of the living conditions of millions across the state, with the situation being even more dire on those with special needs. Our reporters visited the house of Maaddi Burhane, a 19-year-old girl suffering as a result of the lack of medical supplies associated with the siege.
This is Maaddi Burhane. As a result of brain injury Maaddi sustained as a child, she is unable to speak or move her body, making her entirely dependent on her parents. She is also suffers from constant seizures, and so she needs continuous medical care and special attention. However, says Maaddi's mother, Azib Gabazgaber, since she and her husband haven't paid their salaries for well over a year now, they are unable to pay for the medications of their daughter.
I was a civil servant before the start of the siege, but now I don't work. Because of this, I'm going through a lot of problems like any other Tigrayan. But what makes my condition worse is that I have a child with special needs, and she needs a continuous medical attention. Before the start of the siege, we used to cover Maaddi's medical and sanitation expenses by ourselves. However, now we're no longer able to provide her with anything, because we have nothing. Currently, Maaddi is forced to terminate her medication for the seizure as we're not able to afford it.
Maaddi's mother says that her daughter's condition had shown a great improvement before the start of the siege, when she was taking her medication properly. However, now, she says her daughter's condition continues to deteriorate rapidly.
Before, she used to take her medications 3 times a day. When her condition improves, we lower it to 2 times or once a day. However, now we're unable to even give her the medication once a day. Her condition is deteriorating. She had seizures and lost consciousness for hours and sometimes for 3 consecutive days. The entire family gets stressed if she's in this condition.
Azib added that since Maadi cannot control her bowel movement, she desperately needs diapers and sanitation pads, which has become impossible to get due to the blockade on essential items.
She needs diaper and sanitation pads because she can't control her bowel movement. She cannot also control her urine. Currently, we're forced to use pieces of clothes as a diaper. On top of that, it is very difficult to get soaps and other sanitation materials. We are forced to live with all the hardships.
Maadi's story is the story of many Tigrayans who are forced to live under such cruel circumstances, while the international community watches idly by.
That's all for today's news. Thank you for your time. Bye for now.